Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Raw DMC. That stands for Raw, Real, Deep, Meaningful Conversations. I am Alana Yvonne with Truly Great Life, and in today's conversation, I'm excited to share the story and wisdom of Sat-Sung Kalman Hassid, who is a human design expert and Bach flower practitioner. I actually just remembered I'm supposed to say Bach flower practitioner, and you will get to hear all of that in the conversation. But actually, what is one of the wonderful takeaways from our conversation is related to career change and trying new things and how you can actually design a professional life that may look very different from what you started out with or what you anticipated. So I'm not going to give anything away. It's really worth listening to the entire thing. There is um, so many things to take notes on and to consider. And I appreciate you being here, and let's get started. Hi, everybody out in internet land. I am so excited to bring to you another conversation, Raw DMC. If you've listened to any of the others, you know that stands for Raw, Real, Deep, Meaningful Conversations. And today I am thrilled to be having one with my new friend and colleague. Sat-Sung Kalman Hassid of Satsang Solutions is a Bach flower practitioner and human design coach. And she helps busy professional women and their families get unstuck and clarify and reach their professional and personal goals. So, Satsang, welcome to the Raw DMC show. Woo
I'm
woo.
so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, I appreciate it. So, Satsang, as I do with all of my guests who come on, the first question is always, please share with us whatever you want to share about who you are, what you do, your journey. The floor is yours.
Wow.
No pressure.
So exactly, no pressure at all. It's funny because I can always blab on about it without like nonstop. As soon as I find myself being recorded, all of a sudden I become tongue-tied. So you'll have to excuse a bit of stage fright here.
I am
So
here with
I
you.
exactly. So this is raw. What was the
I
acronym?
know
Raw.
it's raw,
So
so it's like a play on Run DMC. Do you know
right,
Run?
right,
Yes,
exactly.
right.
Exactly. So this is it, me admitting stage fright. So I am a Bach flower practitioner and a human design coach. I also do a whole lot of other things. And basically what I do is I help people get in touch with their inner voice because I really, really believe that we have all of the answers inside. I mean, of course, we can learn new things and be helped by others. Of course, we're all together. But once we start listening to ourselves more, and the outside world less, we we become a lot better at understanding what's really good for us, where we want to go and getting there. And I use Bach flowers and human design because I find them really practical. I mean, for some people, they may have a bit of a woo reputation, but they're
Hmm.
really effective and really useful and really practical. Um, oh, sorry, if you hear crunching in the background, I'm out for a walk right now, and
I love
so
that
there
you're
might
on
be
a
a little,
walk while we have this
yeah,
conversation. That's awesome.
exactly. It's 6:30 in the morning my time, and it's just beautiful here. It's beautiful. But so that's what I do. I was a lawyer for many years. I was a corporate lawyer, a commercial lawyer, and I see that I bring the same sort of practical and solutions-oriented approach to what I do now because that's basically who I am.
Mm.
So that's sort of like a big, broad overview, and I'm happy to answer any more questions if you think other things would be useful for me to talk
Yeah,
about.
well, I mean, the first one, so what I hope to do with these conversations is inspire, motivate, encourage, um, help in whatever little way for the listener to kind of get that sense of what other people are doing, especially when it comes around change, overcoming challenges, transitioning from one thing to the next. And you just described how you used to be a lawyer, but now
Hmm.
are doing, I'm sorry, I mispronounced it. It's Bach with a hard k sound, not
Well,
Bach.
technically, if you want to know the real reason, it's called botch.
Oh, okay.
However, I'm in Israel, and so the Hebrew pronunciation is Bach. So I just started calling it Bach because that's where I
Oh,
am. And so,
interesting.
yeah, so I call it Bach flowers, a bit less of a CH in the English version. but technically, if you're in England, people might call it Bach Flowers.
I had no idea.
Um,
Okay, so can you share a little bit, whatever you're comfortable with, about, you know, your first kind of career experience, and
Absolutely.
then a little how did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I got into law because, well, it interests me. I really love law but I didn't actually, looking back, put a lot of thought into it. I got there sort of through a circuitous route. I have a couple of degrees in politics and political science. I began working in the court system, and
Mm,
then I went to law school. I had a bit of an epitome one day that if I didn't go to law school now, I never would, and I went. I tend to do a lot of things on intuition, and on the surface, they might seem a little, I don't know, without thought. I guess they are. But I find that for me personally, that's the most accurate way for me to do things. I was a lawyer for many years. I moved from Canada. I moved to Israel quite a number of years ago. And I love law. I really love the intellectual challenge of it. I've
mm,
done a whole variety of types of law, like from tax law. Then when I was in Israel, I was working a lot with startups because the agreements there are in English. And so my Hebrew is not good enough to actually work as a lawyer in Hebrew.
mm,
And then at some stage, the stress started to get to me and it was really affecting my health.
mm.
And that's why I ended up quitting law. Um, so that's why I ended it. I mean, again, I love law. There's nothing but I don't like it, just the stress I couldn't handle. And then how I got into what I'm doing right now, energy work has always been my hobby from way before my law days, like since I've been
Okay.
quite young. And once I quit my job, I actually studied a bit more and then sort of put out my sign. There's a few more steps involved I'm sort of skipping over just for the sake of brevity. But that's how it happened, is that I kind of didn't know what else to do with my life and I did it. And it's perfect. I love it. I adore it. Far more well suited to this than anything
Huh.
else I've done in my life. And so that's how I got there, through a series of, I guess you could say, divine interventions. Like
Yeah.
many of them, oftentimes at the time, we don't realize how divine they might be. I mean, for instance, having these health problems certainly did not seem divine at the time,
Hmm.
but they helped me so much in my life because now I'm doing something that really is so much more me.
Wow. Okay, Satsang, there's so much here. I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about, you mentioned that the energy work was something you were familiar with for a very long time, even before law. So it sounds like you were open to or involved in or learning about or engaged in, something related to a more holistic practice or interest. And then law, at least in my head, and maybe you can help me reframe this, is a much more rational, logical, other side of the brain kind of thing. So it's like you have both of these.
I absolutely do have both of them. When I do my personality tests, I'm always like smack right down the middle of between intuition and intellect. So both of them really appeal to me. And I think in many ways, that's one reason. It's not exactly answering your question, but maybe in a little circuitous route. One
Yeah.
reason why I also really like Bach flowers and human design, because they involve a lot of intuition and also a lot of intellect. And so they really do satisfy both sides. But you asked about the energy work. Yes, it's always a hobby. It's something that's always interested me. I I believe part of the reason why is I'm very sensitive and so sort of helped me navigate through this world. But I never ever considered it to be sort of profession material. It's always simply a hobby of mine.
Mm.
I just never, just my perspective on it, which I guess is interesting in terms of how one's perspective affects what one does in life.
Well, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, how common is this kind of balanced, this and this present in either of those fields, whether it's energy work or law? Did you find that there were a lot of other colleagues or people or other fellow students like you who also kind of were interested in both of those realms?
Uh,
Or
I
was that
guess
something that this, yeah.
there always are. There always are. I don't really know who particularly my law class was. I know
Hmm.
for a while when I was studying law, I was also teaching Kundalini yoga at the law school.
Oh, wow.
Went for a while. Not that many people were interested in it, but there you go.
Okay, so I forgot to ask this at the beginning. For those of us who don't know what Bach flowers are and who don't know what human design is, can we shift to kind of, can you share a little bit about what those two modalities are?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
So
you.
Bach flowers, and a good question because I sometimes forget that not the whole world knows. So Bach flowers are flower essences. They come from England. They're mainly wildflowers, not all of them. And they help balance our thoughts, our moods, our feelings. They help bring out our best qualities. So there's 38 different Bach flower essences in the set of Bach flowers, and each of them is helps balance certain issues or situations. Like just give you an example, going through some of them. For instance, there's ones that help with procrastination, others
Mm,
help us be more grounded in the present. There's certain ones that help us trust ourselves better. Certain ones are good for fears and anxieties and worries, and others for past traumas. And the list goes on and on. There's, goes on and on and on. And human design is a combination of different modalities, including astrology, the chakra system, the I Ching, and how I use it. How it works is you get a chart of yourself based on your birth date and your birth time. And based on that, you can get real down to earth and practical information on the best ways for you to make decisions, to communicate better, to market yourself better, to understand how you interact more effectively with other people, and to really lean into your strengths. And how I see both of them together, like in terms of sort of a metaphor, is that I use them both to help people gain clarity in their lives and reach their goals. And how I would look at them in sort of like simple terms is if you want to get to a place using the GPS on your phone, you
mm-hmm,
need two things. You need good reception and you need the proper map. And
mm-hmm,
Bach flowers help with the reception. They sort of help you clear barriers from your path that are keeping you from being the full person that you are and getting to where you want to be and knowing what you want to do and being yourself. And human design is kind of like the map itself. It maps out practical things you can do to make your life better and on a consistent basis and maximize your energy. And so I love them. I use them sometimes together, and sometimes people come for one or the other. And I do
mm-hmm.
other things as well. Um, but those are the two main things that I just adore. I just find them so effective and just really, really practical.
I
With
love how
Bach,
you, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
okay, so I want to mention one more thing with Bach flowers because how I also work with Bach flowers is through a conversation. I
Mm-hmm,
learned Bach flowers at the Bach Center in England. It's the World Center of Bach Flowers. It's where Dr. Bach, who developed the system, lived and worked. And other people do other methods. They use cards or pendulums, which are fine. Everyone has their own way, but I personally, for me, my own personality, really resonate to the conversation because when one talks about what's going on, when it's the person themselves, the client themselves, gets greater understandings about their lives, and that in itself also helps.
mm-hmm. So you're talking about when someone comes to work with you, how you figure out with them which Bach flowers or Bach flower combinations would be appropriate given what they're coming to you for? Is that
Exactly,
as opposed
exactly,
to a
exactly.
pendulum or a muscle test or something like that?
Exactly, exactly. And again, every single way of doing it has its own value. It's just what I
Hmm.
myself use. And so exactly, it's through conversation and telling me what's going on.
Okay, so let me ask you, because I think I know I'm familiar and I'm guessing several other listeners will be familiar with Bach flowers from their very famous Rescue Remedy product,
Hmm.
which you can find pretty much anywhere, any Whole Foods, or if you're in the States, or any supermarket or super farm in Israel, and it's just, I remember being
Exactly.
introduced to that when my kids who are now teenagers plus were babies, and it was this idea of I had one friend who would give it to her her toddler to help them calm down, but then it's also, right in your own water or straight to help the mom calm down too. So I'm curious about, since you're an expert in this field, what your thoughts are on that popular rescue remedy.
Rescue Remedy is amazing. It's amazing. It's actually quite interesting. It is the only blend that Dr. Bach himself created. And it's a combination of
Mm,
5 different Bach flowers. There's a night remedy as well, which has a sixth one added into it. And it is fantastic. I mean, it really, really, well, let me just actually back up. I was going to say it really, really,
yeah,
really works. Let me back up. I actually once wrote a blog about this. For some people, it really works. And other people say it does nothing. And they're both right because
yeah.
the formula has 5 out of the 38 remedies. The night one has 6. And so if you happen to need between 1 and 5 of those, it's going to really work. And if you happen to need one of the other ones, you're not going to see a difference.
Mm,
And so it is great if you happen to need something that's in it. It's fantastic. Bach flowers are amazing. A lot of what I find actually is they work really well, but some people have a sense of incredulity that it could be the Bach flowers helping because it's such a small little bottle. You take only a few little drops or a few little sprays, and
hmm
all of a sudden things are better.
So,
So
yeah.
no, go on, go on, go on.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, so I'm familiar also with like essential oils, which are also pretty popular in recent times. So can you help us understand the differences of essential oils versus like Bach flowers?
Absolutely. And I also work with essential oils, by the way. I make essential oil rollers with Bach flowers. So they're from
Mm,
plants. Essential oils are a physical manifestation of the plant, whereas a Bach flower is an energetic manifestation on its most simple level. Bach flowers are created similarly to homeopathics. They're parallel. There's some differences,
okay.
but it's a very highly, highly, highly diluted form of the plant. So diluted, there's no actual physical plant left there. There's only the energetic imprint. So you have a vibration of the plant. On the other hand, essential oils are very, very concentrated versions of the plant. And that's why they have such a strong scent. And that's where their strength. So it's a physical manifestation. You could say that essential oils are more parallel to medicinal herbs, whereas Bach flowers are more parallel to homeopathics. So they're both from plants, but the opposite ends of the spectrums. One is extremely concentrated and the other is extremely diluted. And I really like combining them because they they get at the same issues through different ways. Like, say, someone has sleep problems. Like, sleep issues are one of my specialties for Bach flowers. It's
Hmm.
nice also combining Bach flowers with an essential oil that also helps with sleep because you get many, many different layers of assistance.
Okay, this is so fascinating. How would someone, hmm, how would someone know if they're more aligned with or will likely have better with the Bach flowers approach, which is kind of one end of the spectrum where it's the frequency or the energetic resonance of that plant versus the essential oils, which, if I understood correctly, is the more concentrated physical form of the plants.
Well, both help. Both of them help. I'm more the specialist in the Bach flowers. Bach flowers really get at the root of the problem as well as I work with them. And again, I'm not saying that essential oils don't, I'm just talking about the Bach flowers. But
Right.
I guess rather than talk about the differences between them, I think the simple answer, in my perspective, is nice if you would do both, a person do both, because I always really think that the more things you do for a situation in your life, the more effective it is. Like, let's say you want to get fit, just to take a simple example.
Hmm.
Um, you might go to bed more earlier, you might get better
Right.
running shoes, might go to the gym, improve your diet. Also the more things that you do, take supplements, take Bach flowers, the more that you do, the more effective it's going to be until you get like you're overdoing it. There's a limit.
Right. Right.
And the same thing with essential oils and Bach flowers. I'd say, if you feel like you can both listen to yourself, going back again to the inner voice. Um, See what you feel, what feels right to you. And if you're not sure, I think Bach flowers are incredible. I mean, they are the thing closest to my heart is Bach flowers. I just think they can heal the world. I have never had someone who come to me for Bach flowers that has stuck with it, and that's a big thing, sticking with it, that has
Mm.
not been helped a tremendous amount. So I would say the
Amazing.
short answer to your my very long response is to listen to yourself and see what you feel you're more drawn to. And if you're not sure, you know, I'd say try
That's where an
Bach
expert
flowers.
can come
Yeah,
in. Well, okay.
exactly. I
So,
mean,
yeah.
I just want to say also sometimes people come to me and I'll recommend another practitioner because sometimes I'll feel that Bach flowers are not the best thing for them. And so I'll suggest, I don't know, Chinese medicine or something like that. So like you said, just speak with somebody that's an expert and that you feel will recommend you to the proper direction, not
Mhm.
just to their own products.
All right. Well, quick like technical question only because as I say in the notes and as I have mentioned in other conversations, medical disclaimer, we're not healing or giving advice to anybody. This is all for educational and informational purposes.
Yes.
That being said, are there, if someone's listening and they're like, oh, I've seen those Bach flowers stuff at the supermarket or essential oil roll, it's all, you don't need a prescription for this stuff. It is accessible to anyone. Is there any situation or condition that you feel like someone should be more cautious with experimenting with either Bach flowers or oils?
I'm not going to talk about oils because I use oils,
Yeah.
but they're because it's a concentrated physical form of the plant, there are some contraindications, and so I don't really want to go there
Mm-hmm.
for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the Bach flowers, they're safe. Yeah, if you're sick, they're safe. If you're pregnant, they're safe.
Yeah.
They're if you're taking other medications, they're safe because they're energetic. And so there's something that's quite interesting about them because on the one hand, they're very, very gentle. They're great for babies and young children, animals, your plants. On the other hand, they're also quite powerful. So there's this really nice intersection between gentleness and power in Bach
Mm.
flowers.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard of using them with animals or plants. Can you share like an example
Yes,
of that? Okay.
I used to actually create a lot of formulas for dogs at one point. I stopped for sort of technical reasons,
Okay.
and I give them to the cats as well. I also the stray cats. I have for my Bach flowers. I both do custom formulated Bach flowers, and I also have some popular formulas. And one of them is you could say parallel to rescue remedy. I think in a bit of immodesty, it's better. And especially, it's also specifically geared towards the Israeli market, the tinctures I put into it.
How do you mean?
Um, I slightly adjusted the formula once the war began because there's certain stresses that are going on. I mean, I guess you could say worldwide with Jews in general,
Mm.
but also specifically in Israel. So I just adjusted it slightly to take into consideration some of the particular pressure people feel right now.
Wow.
And I give it to the stray cats, and it really does chill them.
Wow.
So it helps. It's really great. And sometimes if I'll pick some lavender and put it into water just for tea, and if it's looking a little wilted, I'll put a little bit of I call it my parallel formula is called common chill. A bit of it into the water, and it perks up the plant, and it's really great. It works on all sorts of living things. Also, the common chill is really good for cleaning the environment. I put Bach flowers in diffusers. There's also I work with a massage therapist, and she always sprays it in her clinic before new clients come to sort of cleanse the air. So
That's
Bach flowers are
amazing.
very, very versatile.
That's amazing. And do you, okay, wow. All right, well, I guess, there's a whole field here that if people wanted to, know more or ask you about your specific blends, we're going to give all your information at the end of the conversation. Um, is there anything else you wanted to share about the Bach flowers before we dig a little into the human design, which is
I think that's enough
fascinating
because
as
I could
well?
go on for about a million hours, and so you've got to put a stop to me. So let's just say that's enough for now.
Okay, so Bach flowers Interesting, interesting, interesting. I'm gonna have to like, when I re-listen to this conversation, take some more notes. But sounds like you really this is really part of it sounds like this is really part of your calling and what brings a lot of meaning through your work. In so many ways, I'm kind of stunned by this idea of using them with pets or animals and plants. It's really fascinating because I know
Hmm.
that when it comes to essential oils, we have to be careful, I think, with what's being
Yes, there's a lot of
diffused with
there's a
animals. With
lot of
kind of,
exactly. There's a lot of sort of there's not a lot. There's certain contraindications. Overall, they're
Mhm.
very, very safe, but there's certain ones.
Sure,
Bach
sure.
flowers that aren't.
So interesting. Okay, so help us understand, please, for those of us who aren't familiar with, I know you gave a really concise explanation. I love that you described it as the map, and how it's connected to, I think you said the chakra system and astrology and I Ching. Can you just help?
Yes.
All right, so help me understand more. There's so many assessments and tools, and there's a whole world out there. So what exactly is human design good for, used for? How old is it? Or like, yeah,
Maybe
anything
I'll
we
start with sort
can.
of the practical side of it, like
Yeah.
how it actually works. And if I start getting a little bit too jargony or whatever, just stop me.
All
So,
right.
it's how it starts when I'm working with somebody, I get from them their birth date, birth time, location of birth. This is how it works. And through that information, this is astrology end, you get a chart of yourself. The chart um, has within it certain things that resembles from the chakras, but not just it. And from this chart, you get certain information. Now, the reason why I so love human design and why I find it practical is that it doesn't just give a description of who you are right now, like some modalities. Again, not
Mm-hmm.
putting down anything but things that I've studied in the past, but rather it gives tips about how you can be more effective. This chart that you get, it shows how, in human design jargon, you are quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote designed. In other words, this is your end point. And depending on how self-aware a person might be, how much work they may have done on themselves, whether consciously or subconsciously, they
Mm-hmm.
might look very similar to this or very distant from this. And from this, we can get certain information. The things that I focus on a lot are, first of all, how one makes the best types of decisions. According to human design, there's many, many, many ways of making decisions. And to take one step back, the philosophy behind human design that I so love is that every person is different. So why are we taught the same strategies to do things? Like we're taught to make decisions in a certain way, maybe there's a few little variations, but
Okay.
or how to talk to people, and so the idea behind human design is these very basic skills really vary on who you are. And so you and I were talking offline some time ago about me looking at your chart. And so from what I know about you, you and I probably have very, very different decision-making styles. And as I look at it, decision-making is basis to everything. Everything we do in life is a yes, no. If we're procrastinating, we're not making a decision. And so by simply learning this, you can advance so much in life. On top of that, I often have people like, how can you communicate more effectively so you are actually heard?
Mm-hmm.
Again, and I'll give you some examples very, very, very briefly, just a couple minutes. I actually have on my website a page of like free resources, and a lot of it is videos about human design with people's actual charts. And so afterwards, I'll give you the link, and people can learn a little bit more through there because it's something that it's easier to understand when you see an example because talking about it in vagueness is a little complicated. But for instance, going back to communication styles, often we are taught to just go after things. Something, or actually, let me go, if something happens, just to speak our mind. There's certain types in human design where this is not the most effective strategy.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, for me, for my chart, people hear me most of all, not when I respond to things, not if I hear something I want to do and just go and talk my mind about it, but if I'm invited to it. And you could say an example is this podcast itself. If I had just done cold calls and said to people, I want to be on a podcast, I would be spending a lot more energy doing that than positive responses back. But how this worked out is you had written that you were looking for people and I responded. And so I was responding to an invitation. And here I
Mm,
am. And so it might seem like a little bit of an odd or a very vague distinction, but it's actually, the more you go into human design, the more clear it becomes. And I'm actually going to be doing, I think, my next webinar on decision-making style specifically because it's so basic. So through human design, you can also learn about like your strengths and lean into them and where your vulnerabilities might be. An example of that is someone I was speaking with or a client a couple months ago. She has this thing that can be seen in her chart where she is very susceptible to other people's ideas. And sometimes these things, many times we kind of know that, but we've never really put our finger on it and really identified it as just something that is the way things are. And once we do that and accept that's how things are, we can then take strategies to work with it. So for her, it's for her to take to pause and really realize whether that's thing she's enthusiastic about has to do with her or has to do with them.
mm-hmm,
Other people have naturally a lot of energy or less energy, and it's how to manage their energy more effectively. The idea behind human design, as I look at it, is that everyone's chart is good. It's how we are. And the more we understand ourselves, the better we can move forward in life and the better and more successful we are at reaching our goals. We can lean into our strengths. And so when I'm listening to myself speak, I sort of feel perhaps this is a little bit too theoretical, maybe a little hard to understand. So I'd really urge people to look at a couple of those videos because when you're looking at a chart visually, it's easier to see. We're sort of talking in sort of generalities. And maybe if we do another podcast, we could actually talk about our charts and people can see things a bit more concretely. But
okay.
the
Yeah.
bottom line is, it's a great way for understanding yourself, understanding what your strengths are, understanding parts of you that you might want to take more care and protect, and learning how to make better marketing decisions, communication decisions, and decisions in your life.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for that explanation. I'm curious if this is something like other tools that I'm familiar with where it's like an assessment, a questionnaire, you answer ideally from an authentic, intuitive place. You're not looking to give the quote unquote right answer for someone else, but for yourself. And then you get either a weighted results or some kind of information comes back, right? Based on any number of variables, but it's all within, let's say, a possibility of X number of traits or X number of qualities. And then you see which ones are like your high versus your low and what this combination means, right? So, do you know what I'm talking about? How,
Yes,
so,
it's nothing like that. It's
right.
completely different. This is based on your birth date and your birth time and your birth location. And so that's all it's based on. It's based on not where you are at this moment, which is what Bach flowers are, for instance, how
Mm-hmm.
I work with them, where you are right now, and what can we do to help you right now with where you are. Rather, human design, if you go back to the GPS analogy, it's the map. Where is it in your ideal situation? What would you look at? This is your goal. This is who you are in your core and in your essence, not clouded by societal expectations and all the conditioning that you've absorbed over your life. So it's the two of them are quite different in that way.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I'm just wondering, so is for you to get the information once you have the data of someone's time and birth and all that, is this like a book? Is this a tool? Is this a course? How do you get the
Wait,
information that then designs it?
there's a million places. Someone wants to look at their own human design chart. There's a million places. If you do like a Google search for a free human design chart, there's a million places where if you input that information, you can actually see what your chart looks like. And then from there, it's a matter of knowledge.
Hmm.
I've just happened to study a lot, and so I know a lot about it. And so it's then looking at the chart and being able to interpret what's there. But anybody can get their chart very, very easily for free, just on a million places on the
That's
internet.
so interesting. Okay, so
It
it
is.
is,
It's
yeah.
fascinating. It's really fascinating.
So to your point, it's anyone can access this information and go look it up, and there are a number of free assessments for various things. But then the question always becomes is what do you do with this data,
Well,
or
there's also
how do you
books.
understand the information? Yeah.
They could talk to me and I'd be happy to help them. But if they also want to do it themselves, there's a lot of books out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like sort of like any modality that people can either go to an expert or they can do it on their own, like whatever suits the person. But it's a more of a recent modality, but there's still a lot of information out there. And again, people are always welcome to talk to me. I'm always like happy to answer questions. Really, really happy. It's fascinating. It's for me. It's given me a lot of personally both self-acceptance, understanding that things that I had done, like in terms of traits that I sometimes wondered why I did them, actually had a lot of wisdom behind them when you look at my chart,
Mm.
and learning how to just make decisions more effectively and how to communicate in a way that's more effective. It's really helped me. And the communication and marketing is basically communication. So it's helped me a
Mm-hmm.
lot for that as well in my business. It's been very, very useful for me, extremely useful.
Wow.
And the thing I like also about human design is that although on the one hand, it's a very complex system with a lot of nuances, you can also learn only one or two very basic things. And if you integrate it into your life will be transformed. So for instance, for me, for my coaching sessions, you have an option of 10, 5, or 2 sessions. And a lot of people do too. They just want to learn a few basic things. And so I really like that aspect of it is that you can choose for yourself how deeply you go, and it's not like you need to commit yourself to 10 years of a program just to get ahead.
Mm-hmm. And then
Basically,
yeah.
if you learn how to make proper decisions and you just follow the strategy all the time, you might get to where you want to be a bit slower than if you learn a whole lot of other tools as well, but you will get there.
Okay, this is really interesting because well, it's just interesting, but also it's a totally different kind of assessment. My experience with assessments is coming more from the positive psychology and the career uh fields, and there's a lot of depth that can be dug up, and how to use them and approach them, and the one that I always love to start with my clients, we discuss this offline, is with
Mm-hmm.
character strengths, which is kind of like the backbone to understanding positive psychology, which are these, qualities that every human being has. And it's also a language for empathy and for self-understanding. So that's a really easy one for people to understand because the variables are kind of basic. And once you take the assessment and see which ones are your top ones or your superpowers and the ones that you don't use as often, a lot of times they really resonate for people. And it's kind of like an acceptance, can be validating as well. And then there's some others that are a lot more complicated, or they have a cost associated with them, but that can enable you to go so much deeper. I haven't done human design, so the part of me that loves to keep getting information and keep going deeper is like, oh man, I gotta play around with this human design stuff and see how that works. But to your point about self-awareness, you know, that's part and parcel of any kind of growth, right? And you spoke about at the beginning of the conversation, this knowing of yourself, and how do we have that meaningful life where we're living and contributing in a way that is much more authentic for you, the lawyer versus the more holistic provider of services, to people. So I guess my question right now is, when it comes to, because I hear the lawyer trained part of you in what you're saying as well. So it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting how it's almost like there's this integration here of many parts of you.
Well, I want to start by saying that the lawyer part is also an authentic part of me. I really, really love the practice of law. So that's just as authentic as what I'm doing right now. It's
Yeah.
just that what I'm doing right now suits me better all around. And so I just want to make that clear
Yeah.
because I really love the practice of law in terms of the intellectual challenge. And I was working in a very positive area of law as well with startups, with people these really incredible ideas about technology and just wanting to make it work. And it was just so positive. I just really loved it.
That's amazing.
Um, and so I'm sorry, but I missed your question.
No, it was kind of a rambling. My head's in like five different places at once with our conversation, but I'm just wondering, help me understand how human design, or did human design, you knowing your human design, play a role in you transitioning from practicing law to working with Bach flowers and human design? Like, where was that part
Um,
of what helped you make that change?
The human design itself, I actually learned after I stopped full-time practicing of law, so it wasn't. It was more
Hmm.
listening to myself, which made the transition in terms of stopping law. I said I was not feeling well, and I
Right.
just realized that if I didn't stop practicing law when I did, at some point my work quality would drop, and I have very high standards, and I didn't want it ever to get to that place.
Mm.
And in terms of revolving to what I'm doing right now, it was series of, I guess, just following what I felt was the right thing to do. And I guess that's in many ways that's what we do in life, isn't it? There's that saying that you don't need to see the whole staircase, it's just your next step. And that's something that actually human design does talk about. In human design, there's one of the levels of things that one looks at are called centers. They correlate very, very roughly with the chakra centers, very roughly.
Okay.
And one of them has to do with one's direction in life. And the point about this is that with this, even when that center in yourself is very, very clear, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see the whole path. It's just what the next step is. And that also is with Bach flowers in many ways. The way I work with Bach flowers, like, where are you right now? And that's like, what is your next step going to be? And I think in many ways, that's a very authentic way of being. I mean, it's great having long-term plans for those who have them. I
Hmm.
think they're fantastic. It gives you a map of where you want to be and direction of where you want to be. But ultimately, we do live day by day, and there are things that come up in our paths that change things. And so I think whether you're a person that knows what you're going to be doing the next 30 years or not sure what you're going to be doing tomorrow, still paying attention to the present and how we're feeling about things and whether this is the next correct step for us, I think is extremely important in terms of getting to where we want to get.
Yeah, and so you're saying that both with the tools you use, human design and Bach flowers can actually play a role with both, whether it's, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, and if it's I have a long-term plan. I
Well,
understand you said
everything
Bach flowers are more immediate, right? Because it's where you are now, but it can also be used to support you in those long-term goals as well. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think in some ways, the way I like to look at it is that
Hmm.
everything I do, and I work with other things as well. Like I work with a type of energy work. I did healing work for many, many years, and access bars. I stopped for a brief time, and I've just started offering access bars again as well. And I work with crystal. I work with like a lot of different things. Bach flowers and human design are my main modalities that I work with. But the point of them all get is to listen to and hear and get more clear about our inner voice. And they're through different directions. One human design is far more intellectual, whereas Bach flowers is more energetic. And I do certain body work, which is more, say somatic. And I
Hmm.
work with essential oils, which are physical as well. And I do a whole lot of different blends and blend things together. But the point of them all is to help people get to their goals. That's if I had to say what I help people with is to help them get unstuck and get to their goals. And
Hmm.
so and through that, and the way that I help people do that is by gaining self-awareness and being able to listen to and trust their inner voice to a greater degree. And so all of the things I do support that. And Bach Flowers and Human Design, I found the way I work with them, and for me personally, my own personal personality and my makeup and what works are the ones that at this point I find most effective in that. I find they're very, very effective and very, very practical.
It's so fascinating because we have similar high level explanations of what we do, and we have completely different ways of going about them. Like as a coach,
Exactly.
right? And we've talked about this offline. Like it's just so fascinating how also, coaching in general, people will describe coaching, the field of coaching, as like helping people achieve their goals, right? Whatever those goals are. And in order to get clarity, you need to be self-aware and uncover stuff and get out of your own way sometimes. And so there are different techniques or information or tools or processes that the coaching field can help with for that, which doesn't touch on any of these completely complementary, I would think, but just a totally different approach with the energetics and the holistic and the yeah, it's so interesting. You mentioned one thing though, Satsang. I need to ask you, what is access bars? Did I hear you correctly? What's an access
Yes, yes.
bar?
They call it's a terrible name. I didn't make up the name myself. It is a type of energy work. I consider it to be part of the healing world, but I've had people disagree with me, but I see it as part. I see healing as being a big tree, and there's different branches of this tree. Bach flowers is one,
Hmm.
Reiki is one. I see access bars as one. Basically, it's gentle touch to certain energy points, mainly on your head. And it is incredible. What it does is it helps both relax and energize, and it helps spark creativity and also helps you problem solve. And at some point after quitting law and before doing what I'm doing right now, I was teaching English. And even actually, there was a lot of overlap.
Mm.
And what I would really encourage my students to do was to have an access bars treatment as the first half of their English class. And in half an English class, they would learn more after the access bars than they would in the full class without the access bars. It's really incredible. It's really, really, really incredible. And I also do it remotely. I I like the in-person experience because I think it's nice for somebody to lie on a massage table and be treated and just take time to chill and stuff. But for people that doesn't work out, I also do it remotely. And because it's energetic, energy travels in the same way
Sure.
that you and I are talking over a Zoom call and it's traveling, right? The same principle. So I just started again. I'm really, really excited about it. Actually, really excited because I love it, and I just stopped for a whole bunch of reasons, and I'm really excited to start up again. So I'm doing that um, only once a week, actually, only on Fridays for now. And
Amazing.
so
Wow.
that's yeah, yeah.
So
Oh,
is
I just
this,
need.
yeah,
I just mention one thing. You and I mentioned before this we started that when I feel myself, my energy starting to wane to let you know.
yes,
So just a
yes,
little bit of a pre-warning.
got
I'm
it.
starting to wane, okay?
I no, I love it that we will slowly, we will not so slowly. We'll wrap this up. But I need to
Moderately,
ask,
moderately.
yes, yes, we'll kind of like, it's like when you're on the highway and then you're like, okay, take that next exit.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So just I'll look it up, but is access bars, does that work in the same way that like tapping or emotion code or other kinds of energy work, where it's working with the meridians?
It's a bit
Clearing,
different. It's a
it
bit
is
different.
different.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
gonna
I
have to
mean,
look this
I'd
up.
say like everything we do
Interesting.
in this world is energy work if you want to really look at it in the my personal worldview. I think when
Sure.
I was a lawyer, I was doing energy work because isn't everything we do energy? And so doesn't it all work?
Mm,
But that's just my personal approach to it. I sort of say things as a under a bigger umbrella many times.
I love that. Yeah, that totally reframes the field of law for me. And then,
Mhm.
is it good? Is this lawyer good energy or not such great energy? And are we going to be energetically aligned? It's
Well,
really
I think it's
interesting.
really important. I
Yeah,
really think
yeah,
that a lot of things um, I put forth as a practitioner, a therapist, whatever you want to call me, I was doing when I was a lawyer as well with my clients.
yeah.
Want them to feel
Okay.
better.
That's really, really interesting. So, okay, so Satsang, tell us, please, how do you define a truly great life?
I believe a truly great life is when you're truly being yourself, when you are being authentic with who you are. And when I say authentic, it doesn't mean having to like TMI for everybody, but like really truly who you are. You listen to yourself far more than you listen to those around you. We're a social being, so of course we're going to listen to societal rules to an extent because we want to be around other people. But when you're listening to yourself and you're clear about who you are, what's important to you, when you have boundaries, and when you're moving towards your goals and you feel like you're making a contribution in however way that is good for you, that for me is a truly great life.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That is very well expressed. What would you say to those of us listening who are or like that sounds delicious? I'll have a slice of that, but I can't even imagine what you're describing. For those of us who are maybe not as self-aware, not as connected, don't know what that inner voice is, what would be like one suggestion or small step that you would encourage people to consider?
Well, I would consider considering that you're better connected than you think you are. I know, for instance, when I was teaching English, a lot of people who would call me, in particular as women, I noticed, would speak to me and say how they weren't good at English at all.
Mm.
And I soon realized that they were far better than they actually thought they were. And what I started doing was offering them Bach flowers for confidence. And that really helped a lot of my students. So I would say, first of all, you're probably a whole lot more connected than you think you are, just not noticing how connected you are.
Mm.
And if you want to do something practical, I think Bach flowers are amazing for this, really. But if you don't feel like doing that, just like trust yourself. I also really invite anybody to take a look at, so I have a free resources page, or to ask me questions if you're not sure about anything. I really love sharing information. As you can tell, I can sort of talk freely, blah, blah, through a lot. I love, and so do be in touch with me. Um, my website, and you can get in contact with me that way, is satsung.com. It's SAT-SUNG.com. And there's a form at the bottom of the page, and you can just fill it out, and I'll get back to you. And I have a free resource page that talks mainly about human design. There's a bit about Bach flowers, but I also have a blog page. So there's a lot of information there. But if you don't not interested in human design or Bach flowers, but just in general, the question, I would just be like, listen to yourself and see who you're attracted to and what you're attracted to, because everybody's attracted to different things and different people. That's why there's a million different modalities out there, because there's no one modality that's good for everybody, or there'd be only one modality in this universe. And
Hmm.
just start trusting yourself a little at a time. Start also, in terms of trusting yourself, if you want to even go out and buy a Bach flower, Cerato, it's spelled Ceroto, is very good for building self-trust. And so you could take that. And walnut is another Bach flower, which helps quiet people from outside, the noise from outside, and it also helps promote change. And so if you take those as well, you can buy them, any sort of supermarket that you want. They will also help you listen to yourself and strengthen your inner voice.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for those resources, and we'll put all of the links in the description for the conversation. Satsang, this has been so wonderful having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for coming on. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap it up for today?
Well, I'm really, really so excited that you invited me. It really was really lovely. In human design, my type is called a projector. And for projectors, for us to be heard, we need to be invited. So if you know anything about human design and you know anybody who's a projector in your life, the nicest thing you could do about them for them is to invite them to do something, and they will just be so tickled pink. So I'm tickled pink. And I'd also really love to offer your listeners a special, just because I am so tickled pink. And so until up to June 8th. Anybody who's wanting any human design or Bach flowers from me is invited to at 10% off. Just let me know that you listen to this podcast, and I'm delighted to give it to you. And that is it. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's been such a
Awesome.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon. Thank you again, everyone, for listening to our conversation. I would love to know what you think, what you got out of it. So leave a comment. If you're listening on podcast, leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. If you want to reach out to Satsang, all of her contact details are in the description. And if you want to reach out with me, if you want to have a raw DMC, or if you just want to share your thoughts, you can reach me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Truly Great Life is the handle, or you can reach out to me on my website, trulygreatlife.com. There is so much out in the world for us to learn from and absorb what works for us and to discern that which really resonates. And one of the things that I hope you're getting out of this series of conversations is just how many incredible ways there are to live a truly great life, how many different things there are to experience in the world. And when we pay attention to that which really speaks to us on a very core level, then things can open in a way that maybe were not anticipated, things that you couldn't predict. In any case, thanks again for listening. Don't forget to check out Satsang's offers in the description, and she does have a discount for you, dear listeners. Again, and that is temporary. So you gotta act on that as soon as possible before it goes away. But reach out to her. Again, details in the description, and I will see you on the next conversation. Be well.